Welcome to Blackscreen Briefings. Tonight, a case that began with a dropped phone, continued with a social media post that would be studied by millions, and ended with an arrest that answered almost nothing. This is the Delphi murders. Abigail Williams, 13. Liberty German, 14. February 13th, 2017. A day off from school, a hike to the bridge, and a recording that would become evidence in one of the most scrutinized investigations in modern American history. Abigail Williams lived in the small community of Delphi, Indiana, population 3,000. She was visiting her best friend, Liberty German, for the weekend. Liberty lived with her grandparents, Mike and Becky Patty, who had custody of her and her older sister, Kelsey. The girls were inseparable. Both played softball. Both loved music. Both had the confidence of teenagers who believed themselves invincible because they had not yet learned otherwise. Monday, February 13th, was a mild day for Indiana winter. Temperatures reached the mid-50s. The girls had no school due to scheduled parent-teacher conferences. They asked to go hiking. The destination was the Monon High Bridge, a decommissioned railroad trestle spanning Deer Creek, 63 feet above the water. The bridge was locally famous, technically trespassing, and irresistibly dangerous. It consisted of railroad ties spaced 2 feet apart, with no railings, stretching 900 feet across the gorge. Liberty's grandmother, Becky Patty, drove them to a drop-off point near the bridge at approximately 1:38 p.m. The plan was simple. Hike to the bridge, meet Liberty's older sister Kelsey at a designated pickup location at 3:15 p.m. The drive between drop-off and pickup took roughly 7 minutes. The trail connecting them was well-worn, popular with locals, and surrounded by private property and dense woods. At 2:07 p.m., Liberty German posted a photograph to Snapchat. The image shows Abigail Williams walking the bridge, her arms out for balance, the trestle stretching behind her into bare winter trees. The caption reads, "Down the hill." The timestamp is precise because the platform recorded it. This image would later be released to the public, studied frame by frame, and debated for years. At 2:13 p.m., a second Snapchat image was captured but not posted. It shows the same scene. The girls are alone. The bridge is empty behind them. Between 2:13 p.m. and approximately 2:30 p.m., something changed. Someone approached them. Someone they did not expect. Someone who would not let them leave. At 2:30 p.m., Liberty German's iPhone 6s, which she carried in her jeans pocket, began recording audio. The recording would last 43 seconds. It captures a male voice, clear and commanding. "Down the hill." The girls respond with fear, with compliance. The recording continues, muffled, then ends. The phone was dropped or placed in a pocket. It would be recovered with the bodies. Kelsey German arrived at the pickup location at 3:15 p.m. The girls were not there. She waited. She called. She texted. No response. At 3:30 p.m., she drove the route between drop-off and pickup, searching. At 4 p.m., she contacted her grandparents. By 5:30 p.m., a search had begun involving family, friends, and eventually law enforcement. The search continued through the night. Temperatures dropped into the 20s. The girls had left their jackets in Kelsey's car, expecting a short hike. They were wearing leggings and sweaters. They were not dressed for darkness or cold. At 12:15 p.m. on February 14th, Valentine's Day, searchers found the bodies. They were located on the property of Ronald Logan, approximately half a mile from the bridge, in a wooded area difficult to access and invisible from surrounding properties. The location suggested local knowledge. The condition of the bodies suggested something else entirely. Law enforcement immediately sealed the scene. The coroner ruled the deaths homicides within 24 hours. The cause of death was not released. It would remain sealed for over 5 years. This silence would fuel speculation, conspiracy theories, and 1,000 online detectives who believed they could solve what local police could not. The audio recording from Liberty's phone was analyzed by the FBI. It contained more than the 43 seconds released to the public. Law enforcement would later confirm there was additional audio, additional video, and a visual recording of the suspect. They released selective portions. They withheld the rest. The reason given was sensitivity. The effect was obsession. On February 22, 2017, 8 days after the murders, law enforcement released their first public appeal. It included a grainy image extracted from Liberty German's video, a man walking the bridge, captured from behind, his face obscured by angle and resolution. He wears blue jeans, a blue jacket, a brown hoodie underneath. His hands are in his pockets. His posture suggests confidence, familiarity, or psychopathy. The image quality is poor. The figure could be anyone. He became known as Bridge Guy. In July 2017, police released an audio clip from the recording, Down the Hill. The voice is male, Midwestern, neither young nor old. It could be 20. It could be 50. The tone is calm, authoritative, terrifying in its ordinariness. For 2 years, the case cooled. Leads dried up. The image and audio were studied by millions online. Facial recognition experts weighed in. Voice analysts offered opinions. Psychics made claims. Nothing moved the investigation forward. Then, in April 2019, a new direction emerged. Police released a composite sketch that looked nothing like the Bridge Guy image. The new sketch showed a younger man, curly hair, no facial hair, distinctly different features. The explanation was cryptic. The person depicted in the original sketch is not presently a person of interest in this investigation. The public was asked to disregard the image they had studied for 2 years and focus on this new face. Confusion reigned. Theories multiplied. Some suggested 2 perpetrators. Some suggested the sketches represented different stages of the same man's appearance. Police offered no clarification. In December 2021, nearly 5 years after the murders, police made an arrest. Richard Allen, 50, of Delphi, a CVS worker, a man who had told investigators early in the case that he had walked the bridge that day, a man with no criminal record, a man who, according to the probable cause affidavit, had told his wife in 2017 that he was on the bridge but saw 4 girls, then later said he saw 3, then said he saw none. A man whose unspent .40 caliber bullet was found at the scene, matched to a Sig Sauer P226 he owned, but claimed he had never taken to the bridge. Richard Allen pleaded not guilty. The case against him appeared circumstantial but viable. The bullet, the inconsistent statements, the proximity. Then, in 2023, the case began to unravel. Allen's defense team filed motions revealing evidence law enforcement had concealed from the public for 6 years. Evidence of a ritual killing. Evidence of Odinist Norse mythology. Evidence of 2 other men, Elvis Fields and Brad Holder, both with criminal records, both with connections to the girls, both with alibis that collapsed under scrutiny. The Odinist theory was specific. The girls' bodies had been positioned. Tree runes from Norse mythology had been carved at the scene. The date of the murders, February 13th, corresponded to a significant date in the Odinist calendar. The positioning of the bodies formed a specific symbol. This theory had been pursued by investigators in 2017, then abandoned. Richard Allen's defense argued that law enforcement had developed tunnel vision and ignored exculpatory evidence pointing to a ritual killing by persons with actual motive and mythology. In 2024, Richard Allen's convictions were overturned. The Indiana Supreme Court cited prosecutorial misconduct, specifically the withholding of evidence regarding the Odinist theory and the alternate suspects. Allen was released from prison after nearly 2 years of pretrial detention and conviction. The state announced its intention to retry him. As of this recording, that retrial has not occurred. What do we know? What can be verified? We know Liberty German recorded 43 seconds of audio. We know she recorded video of a man on the bridge. We know the timestamp of her Snapchat posts. We know the location of the bodies. We know the cause of death was homicide, though the specific method remains sealed. We know an unspent bullet matched a gun owned by Richard Allen. We know Allen's statements to police changed over time. We know he was on the bridge that day. We also know that 2 other men were investigated and cleared. We know that Odinist symbolism was found at the scene. We know that law enforcement pursued this theory before abandoning it. We know that evidence was withheld from the defense. We know that a conviction was overturned because of this withholding. What we do not know is whether Richard Allen killed Abigail Williams and Liberty German. We do not know whether the Odinist theory represents the actual motive or a coincidental pattern. We do not know why law enforcement released 2 contradictory sketches. We do not know what remains on Liberty German's phone that has never been made public. We do not know why the cause of death remains sealed. We do not know whether the correct person has been arrested, or whether the killer remains free, or whether there were multiple killers. The recording exists. The image exists. The bullet exists. The bodies existed. Everything else is interpretation. Why did the girls leave the bridge? The recording suggests they were commanded down the hill. The hill leads to the private property where they were found. Did they know their killer? The tone of the recording suggests compliance without immediate screaming, though fear is audible. Would two teenage girls follow a stranger into the woods without protest? Or did they recognize the voice? Why was the Odinist theory abandoned? Resources? Pressure? Evidence that disproved it? Evidence that law enforcement chose not to examine? The timing of the theory's abandonment coincides with the focus on Richard Allen. Was this a correction of course or a catastrophic error? What is on the unreleased recording? Law enforcement has confirmed additional audio and video exist. They have described it as the stuff of nightmares. They have refused to release it to protect the families, to preserve the integrity of the investigation, or because it contains information that would compromise their theory of the case. The public does not know. The families have been advised of its contents. Their continued support of the prosecution suggests it does not exonerate Allen. Their support does not confirm his guilt. Why Delphi? The town of 3,000 had no history of this violence. The bridge was known to locals, but not a tourist destination. The girls were not randomly selected from a crowd. They were specifically present, specifically vulnerable, specifically isolated. Was this opportunity or targeting? Was the killer waiting, or did he stumble upon them? The weather was unseasonably warm. The day off from school was scheduled. These variables suggest planning or coincidence. Abigail Williams is buried in Miami County, Indiana. Liberty German is buried in Carroll County. Their graves receive visitors who never knew them. The Monon High Bridge was closed to foot traffic in 2017, then partially dismantled in 2024. The structure that defined their final hours no longer exists in its original form. Kelsey German, who drove to pick up her sister and found a search instead, has become an advocate for victims' families. She hosts a podcast. She speaks publicly. She has graduated college and started a life that Liberty will not have. The guilt of survival is visible in her interviews. The determination to honor her sister is visible in her work. Mike and Becky Patty, Liberty's grandparents, have aged visibly in news footage from 2017 to 2024. They supported the prosecution of Richard Allen. They supported his release when the conviction was overturned. They want the correct answer, not any answer. They have stated they can accept that the killer may never be found. They have not stated they can accept the wrong person being imprisoned while the actual killer remains unidentified. Richard Allen has returned to a life that no longer exists. His name is known nationally. His face is associated with the worst crime in his community's history. He maintains his innocence. The state maintains his guilt. A second trial looms. The evidence has been compromised by misconduct. The outcome is uncertain. This has been a Blackscreen briefing. Sources include the Carroll County Sheriff's Office probable cause affidavit, the Indiana Supreme Court ruling overturning Allen's conviction, verified reporting from the Indianapolis Star, and court documents filed by the defense team. If you have information regarding this case, contact the Indiana State Police or the Carroll County Sheriff's Office. The recording still exists. 43 seconds. Two voices responding to a third. The answer is there, in the audio, in the evidence, in the gap between what is known and what is proven. Until that gap closes, this briefing remains incomplete. I'm your narrator. Until the next briefing.